continuing to hear more stories of Good Samaritans at Sunday's shooting. Earlier, my colleague Vladimir Duthiers caught up with Mark and Misty Lacy and their friend Jane Power. They shared their stories of survival and how they tried to help.
Let's start with you. Describe the moment when you first heard the shots ring out. You're in the National Guard, so you're familiar with gunfire. A lot of people said we weren't sure if they were fireworks. Did you know immediately that you were listening to the sound of gunfire?
Not the initial pops. It truly sounded like fireworks or firecrackers or some pyrotechnics off the stage, and there wasn't a lot of individuals, moving or panic or anything until the second round of shots, and then you saw a small number of people move away from the stage. And then on the third volley, that was an extended volley of rounds, then you saw a mass exodus and the Jason Aldean leaving the stage. And at that point in time, I just stood up and told them to get down, and I ran towards the sounds of the gunshots to find a location, and that's just how we're trained. I retired from the Air Force and now working with the Department of Defense as a contractor, and these are things that they've trained me over the last 20 years, and it's just an instinct, and I couldn't see where the shots were coming from, and then another volley started, so I ran down. Told my wife and friend to go, and then I went back down, and after we got up to the top, and I went back down and told people to move and to exit out the top of the VIP tent. And the guy that was standing to my right, I didn't see it, but he was on the ground, and his wife was screaming hysterically, and he was shot in the head, and he was with a friend who was in the fire department, and the fireman told me that we have a head wound, and he was telling me that I need to get her away so we could get him out of the barrage of fire. And so I pulled his wife off and handed her to my wife, and pulled the girlfriend off, gave it over to my wife, and said, stay with my wife. And then we were able to get the individual up to the top of the VIP area, and they started life-saving measures, but we saw later that evening that he didn't survive.
What were you thinking? Were you thinking you should run?
I was thinking we should run, and when he ran up to see where the gunfire went, I knew exactly what was coming from. I knew exactly what he was doing, and I'm like, please don't go. I'm like, we need to get out of here. And but he said, Misty, he wanted me to keep my wits, and he's like, I can't go. We can't go if we can help people. So at that time, I just kind of made a decision, okay, well, I'm not leaving him, and we need to help as many people as we could. So after, people were doing life-saving measures on this gentleman who had been shot in the head, we kind of moved on and started finding things to put victims on to get them out of there. We're makeshift gurneys of any kind, fences and carts and anything we could get. Wheelbarrows. We went and found a wheelbarrow, and dumping over carts of waters and sodas that had the ice and stuff in them, so we could use them so they weren't so heavy, so we can get the victims out of there easily, and get them over to the staging area where people were putting them in vehicles, private vehicles, because there was no emergency vehicles there yet.
And when you got separated from them, what went through your mind?
Well, Mark had come back. I didn't understand why he was coming back to us, because I thought he was with us when he told us to get down, and he said, run. So we jumped up and ran, and I fell pretty hard and went down flat, and the guy next to me said, stay down, what's your name, you're okay. And I saw Misty was pretty flat up in front of me, so I thought, okay, we're together. And next time I looked up, she was gone. I didn't see Mark. And I thought, well, I know they're together. I know he wouldn't not be with her somehow, and I don't want to lie here and just get picked off, because I didn't know where they were coming from. I thought there were multiple shooters, because there were so many.
You couldn't tell, right, where it was coming from?
No, and there were so many shots that it just couldn't be one gun, is what we thought. And so I ran the direction they told us to, and then ended up with people kind of hiding back somewhere. Still there were shots, and people were hysterical, and I just thought, we need to know what's stay calm, let's figure it out. And then we all started exiting. So actually we came out right over here.
Right over here, right? Mm-hmm. This is the area. I mean, there are still blood stains right on the sidewalk at our feet right here. And this is where all of a good majority of the people from the area came to.
Right, and then they just yelled at us to run, which is wide open to hear, and then we still didn't know what was happening. I'd lost my phone when I fell, so we went and hid and I stayed with this woman who was really pretty hysterical, and every time I let go of her hand, she'd cry, and her husband couldn't calm her down, and I thought, well, I'm not doing much, but it's better than doing nothing, and I knew I'd find them. I just knew I would.